right, Mr. Fountain, would you lead us in the pledge? It's not a pledge of allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you for everybody coming. For those that have not been here before, it is being recorded. So you're on. We do have a fan club in Iceland, so they do watch our meetings. So we always have to say hello to them. I want to thank, before we start, the Planning Board. I was going to say the Historical Commission, but I know the Heritage Commission, for joining us in trying to develop a plan for the facility, the schoolhouse, as well as this house, trying to come up with plans. They spent a great deal of time working on this. And we're very appreciative because I think we worked in a very close, cooperative manner and worked out things that I think will work out best. A few ground rules. One, we're making no decisions tonight. They will be open, the returns will be opened on Tuesday night at the Selectmen's meeting. But there will be no action taken tonight in any way whatsoever. Anything else you want to add before we start? Any ground rules or anything? All questions are fair game. Gary, as we thank him for putting some figures together for us. One question I was asked was what we're going to do, go out for bid. And the answer is yes. Gary has mentioned at one of the meetings he can guarantee the numbers that he's put out, that he could have it done for that number. It will go out for bid. Chances are it won't match Gary's numbers because he did good homework, but it will, just to keep everything on the up and up, it will go out for bid. But Gary has said he will match, or he will use his figures he can cover for that cost. Questions? Nobody? Somebody has to have a question. Hi.
When you're talking about this bump out structure, how big is it going to be? Is it going to be the same footprint?
No, it would only be approximately 16 feet back. It could be. That would be a whole new thing, but we've decided that, or we used as a rough figure, 16 feet. So we go from the back here, back 16 feet. Could be less. We could cut it down to save a few $1,000s to 12 feet, but 16 was the number we threw out.
Now, as far as the work on the schoolhouse versus this bump out, has anyone done a square footage cost comparison? How much a square foot to do one, how much a square foot to do the other?
Generally on projects of this size and caliber, we don't do square foot pricing. If you want to analyze how much a square foot it will cost you, it takes all of 3 minutes to do with the calculator. I mean, 16 by 28 divided into the price of the bump out, or 38 by 16 divided into the cost of that project will tell you the square foot price. Although I don't see the relevance of it because we're not using it to calculate other things.
Well, I'm just wondering if it's based on a square foot price. Is it more cost effective to repair or to replace?
Well, it's more cost effective to repair. I mean, that's pretty obvious just by the figures. I mean, you're going to wind up with about 900 square feet if it's repaired. And that costs $60,000 to put it in tip-top shape. And doesn't need anything from that point on except regular maintenance as any building would require. Paint and shingles every 20 years or so, 30 years, depending on what you put on. So it doesn't need anything more after that. So 900 to 60,000, it's roughly about $70 a foot. Now, if you go into the bump out, we look at the price of that. Again, now 16 by 28 is about 330 feet. Let me see what that price is. bump out, where are they?
Very good question.
The bump out is $46,421, so, what did you just say that was? About 340 feet, it's probably considerably more money, $100 a square foot, 100 and change, 180. Simply because you're buying a new foundation, there's no way you're going to use the existing foundation, you need that. So, and you don't use the existing framing materials over again, which is what the refurbishing does. It gives you your frame, which is already in place with some structural improvements. What with the bump out, you would tear the whole thing down and reframe that. So you have to buy that and a foundation. That's why the price goes up $30 to $40 a square foot. So it is more cost effective to replace it, if that's what the town wants to do.
You said to repair it earlier.
To repair it, not to repair it, I'm sorry. The difference is the number of square feet you get, so it wouldn't necessarily cost less for the bump out than it would for the repair of the entire structure.
So basically, the bump out's gonna be about half the size of the existing building?
No, less than half, a little more than a third.
A little more than a third, not even.
And you can save a few grand by bringing it down a couple of feet, but the big ticket items, the bathroom, the utilities, the heat, all that stuff stays in place, you know? You're gonna bring it down in some, you know, I didn't recalculate by the foot, you know, if we bring it down every foot, how much less it will cost. So we picked a number of square feet, and went with that size, and I made a spreadsheet with all the materials in it that covers that size. Making it smaller would, of course, save X number of dollars.
Very good. Any further question? No, go ahead.
Well, in the letter, you said that we have, in the past, we've used that as part of our emergency shelter.
We have used this building and is accept this part of it, and is also, we've used the bathrooms, obviously, and that part is accessible if we had a major thing, we had to get more people in, that would be it. One of the things that we have toyed about, and we think it's important, that when we replace the bathrooms, for example, that we put it in with a handicap accessible bathroom and shower. So if people are here, they have a chance to take a shower if it was used for that. So it can be used for that. It's used, we know right now it's been, in the past been used for various things. It's been used for a Christmas fair. When they've had a bigger crowd, they would use that. It is available for the shelter. We've had things stored back there. It has the potential, no matter what happens, that if it were redone, it could be used for additional things, sewing bee or some other darn thing. It could be used if that's what the people want to do. It's strictly up to the voters to give us an idea of what they're thinking.
And
Not the
basically,
voters. In this sense, it's not the voters, it's the landowners.
basically, the bump out is going to be bathroom facilities, handicap
Storage.
access, heating system, hot water,
Yes,
storage.
that's correct.
So if we needed that space in the future, it wouldn't be there.
That's correct.
We could use the town office space for overflow.
No.
Moving the approved bathroom and mechanical room to the old office space, is that off the table? Or?
No. It's not, it is in the sense from what's here, it has been considered and gone back and forth on it. Some of the concerns people have had is first of all, the loss of that space that somebody may want down the line for something else. We did not include it on this because we were trying to limit, it didn't seem to be the most logical option. Could we in the end go with that as a possibility that we could? I know Rich has done some research on that, and we've had different people come in giving us a variety of opinions, but we wanted to keep it simple. Yeah.
We received one ballot. Can I get an extra ballot? No?
No?
It's one ballot per home?
Per home. Yeah, it's because it's not a ballot. It's a questionnaire that we've sent to get feedback. Should we have to go into March further, then it's strictly the voters that make the decision. But given the fact that there are 350 pieces of property with the home on it. We felt since they're all paying the taxes, I know the landowners are as well, but they're the major tax payers, that they would all have a say in this, so they can never say, well, we didn't have a say. So we're getting their opinions. Should anything else occur, that nothing happens tonight and you have to go to next year, it'll strictly be the voters in March that make that decision.
Well, my wife and I disagree on everything.
We anticipate that. We won't tell you when we look at it.
That's okay.
It just,
Any other questions? So we'd like to hear as many questions because we know you'll talk to other
it
people.
is whoever pays their taxes in the property, that one vote. When he is paying it, so it's his vote.
Well, I don't know if he's paying it.
It's a
disagreement here.
Then you have a vote between you two. See?
One of them's gonna walk home, I don't know which one.
Two questions related. Can the town receive private money for the restoration of that building? And two, if yes, have you guys looked into looking at grants and the potential of stabilizing it now and then doing a fundraising effort? So non-tax money is spent in the restoration of that building. If there are a lot of people who want to restore that old building, then talking about using non-tax dollars to do it rather than, so can the town accept money for a project like that? And if yes, then have you guys, has that been talked about?
You wanna take it? Or you want?
So, we have talked about that. And I don't remember the answer to, can the town accept money, private money, for a restoration project?
I think we could work around that it could be done.
I think so.
I do know,
I
Frank,
think the selectmen can make that. Yeah.
they can accept the money, you're right, they can, now that I think about it. So, yes, I've looked into grants. The first grants coming up are Moose Plate grants, where money is available for restoration and preservation of buildings. I have a list of probably 5 grants, and no time to write them, but I would, if we're able to save the building.
One of the things that we need, I mean, we're very realistic. This building here is gonna need attention. What we're going to do is not gonna be done overnight, and everybody has to understand that this is multi-issues. The schoolhouse we see as the critical one because we start making decisions after that's settled. But this building here is also gonna have to be addressed. So some of the grant money, if that were to be done, could also be used here, depending on the grant. Some people may want to specify for the schoolhouse, some people may want to specify, you may write it for this building. But we do know both buildings will. That's the immediate problem. Okay, anything?
Other than we ballpark the number that we think we're gonna need for this, and it's a little less than $250,000 to renovate this structure.
So that's a multi-year thing down the line.
And we're talking about out back now in the range of 50,000. So we have this coming at us also.
This schoolhouse, where was it originally?
We're going to our historical person with that.
It was at the foot of Moose Mountain Road on a small piece of property. We just found in the vault here the original deed from the school district to the town of Brookfield in 1966.
Governor's Road. If it is historic,
The address would have been Governor's Road.
I would go even further, that's where I want the schoolhouse back.
Except
If possible.
It's private land.
But,
It's not our land.
well, if we could have had the 20 acres, we would have put it on there years ago.
No bidding, so we're where we are.
Yeah.
Credit.
Going back to the question about grants, I think it's important to note that if the schoolhouse goes, you won't be looking at any grants from anything like L-Chip or Moose Plate, National Trust property, if the schoolhouse goes. So it's important to realize that, like right now, the L-Chip grant round is up. They had, last Tuesday, they had the grant writing workshop that you have to attend in order to submit. the grant is due September 21st. I was going to go to the writing workshop, and I realized it was a waste of time at this point, because there's no way we're going to pull together the figures for September 21st. There will be another round, we can do 2 rounds. That's our state money. The legislature budgets that money for historical restoration and conservation. But it's very important that people realize that if the schoolhouse goes, more than likely you lose your National Historic Register status. And given the fact that we had a $5,000 grant from the National Trust to do a acceptable historic survey of both buildings, there's not going to be many state or federal agencies or private agencies that are going to look very fairly on the fact that we got rid of half of the structure.
And some of these grants are matching grants. And
Right, LCHIP is matching.
so by putting money into it, I think we've shown that we're willing to invest and do whatever we need to do is matching.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Second question. This pump out, if I would do this now, can you move this whole building back another 20 foot to get more room behind here for future users? Because we're going to spend all the money in there, and it's going to get filled up, and that's it. We barely make it with 15 foot to put in what we really want. Another 20 foot would be just ideal, maybe even more. Turn the building around. I don't know. This is
This building or that building?
that building.
You want that one?
Because the cost of the game I'm putting together.
To move the old schoolhouse backwards?
Well, I don't know. Is this possible? That's what I'm asking.
I think anything's possible with money, but
So how much is that?
I don't know what we gain from that other than some additional square footage. I think if we're going to focus on the schoolhouse being a viable building that we want to save, I think moving it would be one of the last things you want to do.
Well, it's a one-time tax for whatever we want to do now, right? The assessor says, well, we do assessors for doing this year. Next year we assess to move this thing, maybe even 2, then it's in 3 years we move this thing back. Get more room in it back for the money you're spending. You know, the town is growing, I hope. And, you do that schoolhouse properly. I don't know how that works with it, but you can get first graders in there even, and you can teach in there. And make it a living monument, or whatever you want to call it.
We had a list when we started of about 6 options.
Yeah.
We narrowed it down to 2. We tried to be realistic as to what the folks might accept. So we eliminated some of the things that we thought were a good idea, but they weren't going to fly. So that we get a better results by only having 2 options. And instead of putting out 6 and we only had 10% here, 15% here, we would really not have a clear picture. So we tried to use everybody compromised pretty much on this, and we narrowed it down to 2 options because it was money's a reality. So he's a heavy friend.
Yeah, you've mentioned several times about being a multi-year project. If the decision is made to go forward with the restoration of the schoolhouse and the rehabbing of the bathrooms and the heating system, is there a time limit as far as emergency management goes? Do we have to have the, can we do that over a 2 or 3 year period of time, or do we have to get it all done next year or something like that?
No,
Looks like the 47,000 you've got already would take a pretty good chunk of the estimate that Gary has provided, so you probably could get a lot of the work done in the first year.
that would be our prioritization list. We would say, what is going to first shore up the building? What's going to make it structurally sound? Gary's given us some good advice on flooring, foundation, roof. Those kind of things would be a priority checklist. Our utilities, our heating system would be something else that we would probably have to fold into that high priority list. To make it structurally sound first and foremost would be our primary goal. And right now, there's no reason to think it's going to fall down, but in order to really to give it a good solid shell for us to work upon, those would be probably our first items. And the heating system, which would ensure we wouldn't have freeze-ups and would save us fuel costs, would be a very close second, if not rolled into the middle of that mix.
So we would spend, in essence, we would start the project this year going in stages, because I think Gary's pretty much gone through it, but if you take a wall apart and find something, oh no, we didn't know that, everything halts. It was a major expense. We're not going to go forward and say, oh man, we found something that costs an extra $40,000. We can move it both up at that point. Gary's done his homework, does not anticipate finding anything because he's gone through. So we would go ahead and spend up to the amount we mentioned that we have available, the $47,000. The remainder, if they went with refurbishing it, we would do the second year with approval from the voters. Gary, did I speak out of, is that right? Or?
Well,
No, never mind, you had your hand up.
say it louder, what you were just saying. Hey, we should be able to have a building, given the number of people, at least the acoustics are good. But
I was saying that the reason, if the first one, refurbish the schoolhouse, was a choice that they made, we would go ahead and start there, as Brian mentioned, doing the foundation and doing the important work. In case we ran into something unexpected, and we said it was going to cost us $40,000 to fix the unexpected, everything would grind to a halt because we know we don't have that money. Gary's done his homework, feels confident that we're not going to run into those problems, but if in case we did, some minor thing we could take care of, but if we ran into anything major, we would hold up and say, wait a minute, we've got a bigger problem than we thought, and it's not right to go ahead and spend the money without the voters' input.
yeah, okay, that's where I was gonna go before anyway. The cheapest part of any package is the framing lumber, and anything you run into in walls, etc. It's not terribly expensive to buy components to restructure. It's cracked this, broken that, it's replaceable. Well, first of all, we're going to restructure the roof and replace the entire floor superstructure anyway. So, what's left? A few studs in a wall here or there. It's not an issue. It's not a $40,000 frightened to death issue once you get in and find a little problem here or there.
Watch the Home and Garden show or whatever when they do the house repairs.
It's my understanding that this whole thing is more or less to find out what the people of Brookfield, what they're inclined to do to guide you guys into making decisions. More or less, right?
Yep.
Haven't made it yet.
Because one aspect of whatever we're going to do, if we do one thing, it's going to create a whole series of other issues that we need to do. If we were to demolish the schoolhouse, we couldn't do it now because we don't have the funds to build the bump, do the heating system, all that stuff. We would have to prolong it out. By refurbishing the school, we could begin project immediately, next month. By the time bids are in, we could start it. And it wouldn't cause, and it wouldn't be something we would have to kick down the road until we accrued the funds. A tear down would mean we would need to say, okay, that's what we're going to do, but we need to get an additional $13,000, $15,000 in order to make that happen. So one thing affects the other without a doubt, and so that's why it was also to choices, but when we realized one choice affected the other choice, it was definitely a whole domino effect when you start talking and doing anything drastic one way or the other. The least drastic would be refurbish the school and do things in a multi-stage process.
See, once we know the general direction, then we can develop the detailed plan to support that goal. We were getting hung up as we went through this with all these various options on doing this, doing that, and doing whatever. So we distilled it down. Do we focus on not restoring, refurbishing, or do we focus on taking it down and dealing with the heating and bathroom issues as a separate issue? So that's where we were. What general direction are we going to go?
And I think Rich hit on a real important word, refurbish versus restore. is two different things. Restoration of the schoolhouse, we're beyond a restoration. I think our restoration efforts, and the true term of restoration is, we would focus that in this building. I think the schoolhouse is more of preserving the structure, but not restoring it to 1801, because I don't think, Mary Lou would even say, we don't really know what it looked like in 1801. But we would want to preserve it, and that's a refurbish, not a restoration. This is a restoration project. That is not quite a restoration.
Questions, please?
One more. Are there any strings on the 18,000 in insurance money? If the town decided to go with a plan to remove the schoolhouse and build the bump out or put the bathrooms in the corner, could that 18,000 be used for that project?
Yes. Yes.
So it does not have to go to that building?
No, we can go to improving the facility.
Okay.
We have the money.
Gary?
The way this was costed out, all these options are still viable, depending on which ones you want to pick and which direction you're going. Like the wall option of leaving the wainscoting or putting new wainscoting in. It's already costed out. So, there it is.
Our sense would be, if that is refurbished, the schoolhouse, the inside would be basically modern-ish.
Not necessarily.
We're negotiating that one.
We're
still.
negotiating that. Is it?
We're saving it for when we made this decision.
And that's an example of how we've developed this process. So we backed up to the level of, do we work on it or we take it down? Because once we know the direction, then we get into the next phase. What does it look like?
Yeah.
Right, which fork in the road are we going to take, and then the finer details of each will be worked out thereafter.
Because it becomes important, because some people may say they'll never use it as a schoolhouse. Some people want to see it as a historic type building because grandma went here, that type of thing. So there's differing opinions out there, depending on who you talk to, which one. And that's the landmines we have ahead of us. And we will, I think we'll work cooperatively, I hope, and resolve that one. You're smiling. Makes me nervous.
Compromise.
Yes.
Before, Craig, you said that if we demolish the building and take the schoolhouse off of this building, we would lose the ability to have grants come to this facility?
Probably. I didn't say definitively, but it looks like, if you look at the National Register website, and you look at how a building is removed from the National Register, we'd be a prime candidate for being removed. Because what was approved, if you look at the, what you call it, the application that went into the National Register was both buildings. Actually, let me read it to you because it'll be easier.
Oh, that answers the question. I didn't know that the application had both buildings. I thought only the townhouse was the historic.
No, that building was there for 10 years when the application went in. It was treated as both, and both buildings are on the National Register as integral parts of each other. They are not on as two separate structures. They're on as the National Register. They indicate that it's the townhouse built in 1823 and the Churchill School built in 1801 joined together.
We're going to need to find out what the actual factual answer is, because if that's a fact, then...
Well, I talked to the state today. Mary Kate Ryan is the state survey coordinator.
She's been here.
Nowadays, when you do a National Register application, she's been here. She sat in that schoolhouse and did a workshop with the Heritage Commission about 3 years ago. So I called Peter Michaud, who is the New Hampshire state representative in the New Hampshire office for the National Register. Unfortunately, he was out on a site visit. I'm hoping I'll talk to him tomorrow. Mary Kate referred me to the website for the National Trust, because I said to her, what will happen? And she, of course, was not willing to commit any answer, but she said, look at number 16, which gives the reasons. Grounds for removing properties from the National Register are as follows. Number 1, the property has ceased to meet the criteria for listing in the National Register because the qualities which caused it to be originally listed have been lost or destroyed, or such qualities were lost subsequent to nomination and prior to listing. And then there are others. Additional information shows that the property does not meet the National Register criteria for evaluation. Number 3, error in professional judgment. And then the other one's a prejudicial procedural error. If anything were going to affect us, it would be number 1. Simply because the registration isn't the townhouse, it's the townhouse and the Churchill School. I'm not speaking definitively saying that, oh, it's going to be gone, but I think you have to be realistic about how the state would look at this, and then what they would recommend to the National Register. What I was talking to is, if we lose the National Register, we also lose our listing as a state historic site, and it's highly unlikely, particularly after we got a $5,000 grant from the National Trust, which was a real coup for this town to get, and then to say, oh, we're going to rip it down, after the survey does not recommend ripping it down. I mean, you have to face the facts of what the timeline looks like and what the facts are.
Just in response to that, we have worked as a committee with the understanding that this was part of the historic part of the schoolhouse, was not on the register.
They're both on the register.
So my error.
Changes it.
I'm not mad at you, I'm
Do
just.
you have the application?
You know what I do? I don't have it with me tonight. Oh, it's in my car, but I do have a copy of it.
So in addition to having the honor that the buildings are on the registry, in addition to the honor of having these buildings on the registry,
Right.
how much dollars are we talking about? I mean, if we take it down, what do we lose with grant money? What's the potential loss to grant money?
That's hard to project. I mean, there's private foundations. There's one foundation through the National Trust that specifically is for the decorative interior. Mary Lou and I talked about it would be perfect when it comes time to deal with the plaster and, I'm assuming, the repainting. That's their focus. They're only interested in interior decorative art of the building.
That would be this building or that building or both?
I would be thinking of this building I'm in total agreement that if we keep that building, which I hope we do a modest renovation, adaptive reuse of that space. That's what they call it in the preservation field. And what you do is you adapt the building to make it usable. You try to keep as much of the original material, but you go to town and you fix it up. Not a restoration, as Gary has clearly pointed out, and several other people have. You pointed out. It's not going to be a restoration.
So that wouldn't jeopardize, if we modernize it, something would be energy efficient, but if it's structurally the same framework, the same footprint.
I can't speak with authority about, at this point, what you do. What you would have to look at is the criteria for doing it properly so that you don't shoot yourself in the foot.
But
And that's easily enough done when you do it ahead of time, when you look at the criteria and you factor all of that in, it's not that big an expense. And I don't think, Gary may disagree, and it's not that difficult to do, but you do it with foresight so that You know, when you apply to L-chip, they don't go to the state, and the state says to them, oh, they screwed it up royally, and don't give them any money.
They probably look favorably on it, just an attempt to keep as much as we could of the old.
Who knows? I mean, there's standards and criteria for all of this. You know, all you have to do is look at that. It's all on the website. Secretary of the Interior's standards for rehabilitation, standards for restoration, standards for the other language I can't remember.
Okay, Karen.
Well, the biggest change to that interior of that room back there would be the ripping down of the ceiling and replacing it. And Homestead, I don't think dates back to 1801, but that's what's up there now, so. It would
You
be
have to do an adaptive reuse of that.
Excuse me?
You have to do an adaptive reuse of that ceiling. You can't keep that ceiling or the electric,
No.
or the electric fixtures. Unless you were doing a 1950s restoration, which would be absolutely crazy, for my opinion.
Well, anyway, I would recommend that that's what this survey is, to find out how the people of town feel about this. Pretty much. And if the people of the town were to feel that they want the schoolhouse gone, if that were the overwhelming majority, then I would recommend that the selectmen wait till the town meeting and put it on the ballot and actually get the vote of the townspeople in light of this historic and grant business. Because at that point, it does affect the town in a more far-reaching way than we assumed when we started this. I'm not sure of all the particulars, but according to what Craig's saying, that it does have long-term repercussions, and then it really could become a ballot item without too much trouble. I'm sure we could make this work for the winter with what we already have back there. But I don't know.
Well, I think to dovetail that, without a doubt, if the demolition was the overwhelming thought, once again, we still don't have funds to really go forward with that. So it wouldn't happen until the vote coming up. So that would be something if we were to say 90% of the town wants it torn down, then March would come before we'd even have an opportunity to even move forward with that project. So, that would make sense.
Well, but based on how we do this historically, we could have outhouses to put the money in. So. There we go. Questions? We do plan to put in, which is you see at the end, both figures do not include a new heating system, which we will need to face at some point. I think we can get along with 1 year with the one we have, but we're going to need to face that problem. We've had suggested, it has not gone out for bid, from 10,000 to 15,000, so we put the high number on a purpose, plus or minus, to put in a new heating system. But we did not include it on, and that's why it's at the bottom of the list. It's not included on the numbers you see here.
In the bathroom and mechanical on the side, is there any estimate to take the building down? You alluded to, I didn't have the funds to do that.
You mean just the demolition cost?
Yeah.
We've heard the figure 8,000 cost out. That would be to tear it down and basically fill the foundation.
We then are faced with having to do something in the back of the building. We have to then do something with the back of the building, the back of the schoolhouse. We're not quite sure what it would encompass when that came off. We wouldn't know. It could be fine, or it could be siting issues or whatever.
The $8,000 estimate for demolition, and we have two of them independent of each other, only covers pulling the wood frame structure out, nothing to do with the foundation.
Or not filling it?
Pardon me?
Not filling the
It
foundation?
has nothing to do with site work.
Okay.
Just pull the wood frame off and haul it to the dump. And after that, there's another probably $2,000 or $3,000, perhaps more, I don't know. They dig away the concrete out of there, making it parking lot or something else.
What do you ask? Questions? What's the rumor mill have out there? What are they asking? Not that there's any rumors going around, but if you know of people that are asking questions, ask them for them, please, because I want to have them.
Never in Brookfield.
In fact, Tuesday night, when we look at all these, everybody start asking all new questions, because they're due Tuesday. We will open them at the meeting on Tuesday. We have approximately 53 in as of tonight. So, out of 350, give or take a few. Any follow-up questions? Otherwise, we're all going home early.
Yep. Will you take a question from a non-resident?
Sure.
Right. I've tried to sit here and listen to the two sides, I guess, or two possibilities. The interior restoration of the school, through grants and all that, that's a separate issue after the building becomes structurally sound so that you can do it. The making the building structurally sound gives you the ability to do all the things you do now and a bunch more things that you can come up with later on in the space that's already there. The letter stated that you have X amount of money available for either project, but you need a balance for either project to come to completion. And in addition, you get the heating system, $15,000 on top of that. Forget the heating system for my conversation, because you're going to need that anyway. Okay? What's the difference in the making the schoolhouse structurally sound, less the heating system, or tearing it down and putting the 16-foot bump out there? There's a delta between the two costs. Whatever that delta is, you say that you have 350 tax-paying lots of land to assess this cost against. The additional cost isn't going to go forever. It's going to go for some period of time, 3 years, maybe, I don't know. 2 years, maybe 5 years. I don't know. Okay? But if you take that delta cost and divide it amongst the 350 areas where you're going to grab a dollar to pay for it, what's it going to cost each individual landowner to make that structurally sound, give you the space that you've got now, give you the opportunity to go for grants and restore that section of the building, and then go for other grants to restore this section of the building. The main thing is to make that structurally sound so it doesn't deteriorate anymore. If that cost is, let's say, $20,000 difference between the bump out cost and the let's make it structurally sound cost, divided by 350 lots, times, divided again by 3 over a 3-year period, you're talking about $70 a year for a lot to make that a structurally sound building. That's not a lot. I mean, that's a dinner out someplace.
$20 a year, right?
That's 2 tickets.
It's what?
About $20 a year.
Okay, $20 a year. Okay, let's go to McDonald's. No, let's not. Let's give the $20 to restore the building, or not restore the building, make it structurally sound. Once a year.
All right, any other comments? Okay, before we close, we're going to have you and Gary from the planning, Gary is the representative from the planning board, yourself, to make any comments, closing comments.
So you all know I get on with it, so I'm going to pass to Harriet.
Sure.
I care about these buildings so much. But it just, the thought that we've had all these generations before us want to preserve them, want to save them. It's very hard for me to accept the fact that we would be the generation that would say, oh, we don't care. We have to care. We're the stewards of these buildings. We have to care. We have to do our best to preserve them the best that we can. I wrote a letter to the editor. God love him, he didn't publish it. And it's a good thing he's not here tonight. Or he'd have heard about it. But, you know, the basic thing that I would say is, I don't even think Harriet needs to read my letter, is that, you know what, we need to preserve them. They've been here a long time. We have, as a town, continually voted to protect and preserve these buildings. We need to continue to do it. Please help us do it.
Harry, you want to read that letter? For her? Okay. Gary from the planning board.
Okay.
You're representing the planning board, not Gary.
All right. OEP automatically states that it's the planning board's duty and it's in its purview to initiate, create, and maintain a capital improvement program for the town, which has been on our agenda for a number of years. I was on the committee. However, we didn't do anything about it because even though Brookfield's a little town, the issues are very complex in this respect. We're here dealing with the schoolhouse. That's all part of CIP. We can't do a capital improvements program. The idea of CIP is to first identify and assess the assets of the town, that being the roads basically and the structures. And it could be cemeteries, there's a lot of things involved. But cemeteries, and there's maintenance involved in them, but these are the high maintenance items, the roads and the buildings. Consequently, we haven't been able to go anywhere with CIP. We don't have a working engineering department like big cities do, et cetera, et cetera. And in order to make a projection for the selectmen to guide them in what to do in the future with the CIP, you first have to do what we're doing here now. It's absolutely a part of it to create the future for this building, whether it's tear it down, fix it. We cannot do a capital improvements program for the buildings without these items. We're wasting our time. It'll be ineffective. We can do the roads, but this is as important a part of it as anything else. So that's what we're fixating on this year. Capital improvements program for the town, not much else unless we get walk-in business, and that's what we've been doing so far. And this is part of it, so we're kind of bumping along with the tortoise as it makes its way to the fruition of whatever we do here tonight. Except for the roads, we can do that.
Rich, you want to speak on behalf of the selectmen?
So that's pretty much where the planning board's going, what we've been doing.
Sure. I think as the board indicated earlier, we're struggling with what the town wants us to do. We've heard a lot of different input from different people on both extremes. It's $20 to the tax rate to I can't afford a tax rate. So we thought the best thing for us to do is ask for input from the town, and that's what this is all about.
We wish there were more people here tonight, but we have what we have. Your telephone is a very strong tool. Ed will tell us the internet's a strong tool as well, and we hope that you will contact people to make sure that they have their survey form into us by Tuesday. Make the calls, get them in. We want a full sense of what the community feels like. It's a non-binding survey. It's to give us direction.
Can they do hand delivery?
Pardon?
How do you want hand delivery if somebody asks that question?
Put it in the mailbox.
In the mailbox.
Just drop it by, dump, put it in the mailbox, the sheet. Okay.
Tonight?
Yes, you can go over there and put it in. All right?
The only other thing I'd like to just remind everybody of is that this Saturday is Old Home Day. It's our 5th annual Old Home Day in town. It starts in this building with a pancake breakfast done by the Brookfield Historical Society from 7 to 10. 7:30 to 10. At 10 o'clock, there will be a Conservation Commission hike led by Jen McCowan. up Moose Mountain, and then probably about 11:30 or so, the schoolhouse and the townhouse will be open to the public. It's one of the few days that it is open all day to the public. We'll have exhibits in here on different people that have been important to the town, and some pictures of Churchill School. Craig was hoping to get me a copy of that deed that he just found to the schoolhouse. We'll have that available, and we've asked that possibly the selectmen be available at different times during the day as they are available for people should they have questions about the questionnaire and the survey. The capper is that night from 5 to 7. We do a Memphis-style barbecue. We're very lucky to have Rick Surratt in town, and he will be cooking from Friday night to Saturday nights, and this year we're having beef, pork, and chicken, and the cost is $12 for adults and $5 for children under the age of 12. We will have homemade baked beans, cornbread, coleslaw, corn, and dessert. So we hope you'll come.
Because we're looking to have DJ along with it, sure.
Yes. So, please come.
And just incidentally, because we usually have so many people at that dinner, we will be using the schoolhouse, as we have in the past couple of years, to serve and for overflow seating, which we've also needed the last couple of years.
Last year we served 110 dinners.
We may weigh you before you go in to make sure. Laura, we'll take that personally. Thank you so much for coming.
One thing I say, if in your travels, when you talk to people, you have questions about the costs on all this, I drew up these spreadsheets. Anybody that you bump into, you can send them to my house. I'll be around all weekend. I'll be more than happy to answer any questions they might have about the minute.
We gotta get.
Trying to get the conference.
Yes,